I'm Sacramento County District Attorney Tin Ho. Thank you for listening to the Justice Journal podcast. This podcast series engages our community in issues that impact public safety and shares how our office is ensuring justice in the courtroom and in the community while achieving our mission of Semper Justitia, which in Latin means always just.
Welcome to the Justice Journal podcast. I'm your host, Shelley Oreo. Today, we're featuring a longtime partner and supporter of our office's DUI prevention efforts in DUI prosecutions. I'm very pleased to have Tim Weisberg from the California Office of Traffic Safety joining us today, as well as our lead deputy district attorney, Gregory Hayes. Can I have you both introduce yourselves, just your background and your current roles? Tim, I'm going to start with you.
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm Tim Weisberg. I'm the Deputy Director of Marketing and Public Affairs for the Office of Traffic Safety. I've been with the OTS for a little over 5 years and manage all of our marketing, media campaigns, and outreach programs for the office. I used to work as a local TV news producer in Denver and Sacramento before starting my career with the state as a public information officer with Caltrans in Los Angeles. So started in transportation and have stayed there.
Hi, my name is Gregory Hayes. I'm a Deputy District Attorney with the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office. I've been a Deputy District Attorney for a little under 10 years at this point. During that time, I've worked in many different roles and assignments in our office. I'm currently assigned to the misdemeanor unit as a lead Deputy District Attorney. Specifically, I'm the grant-funded prosecutor assigned to the Office of Traffic Safety Grant for DUI and drug DUI prosecution, education, and outreach. Funding for this program was provided by a grant from the California Office of Traffic Safety through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. What you're listening to now is part 4 of a 4-part podcast series related to driving under the influence.
The focus of today is going to be on the Office of Traffic Safety. Tim, I'm going to have you start us off by tell us everything about Office of Traffic Safety. I don't know if the public, I think they probably see some of your PSAs, but I don't think they really understand much about the organization.
Right. We are a small but mighty team, have a staff of 37 people, and we take a leadership role at the local, state, and national level to make transportation safe for everyone on the road. We are the state's voice for traffic safety, and we are the ones that provide grant funding that's made available by the federal government, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA. We fund more than $100 million annually for education and enforcement programs throughout the state. Really, the mission is to save lives. Our vision is where everyone in California will go safely. And a little history, because I think it's really interesting for the context on how really the formation of highway safety offices throughout the country were established. Every state and U.S. territory has some type of highway safety office that programs this funding for agencies throughout the state. So may not be familiar, but in 1965, the consumer advocate Ralph Nader, he published a pretty infamous book, Unsafe at Any Speed, and it focused on car manufacturers and their resistance to safety features like seat belts, and really their reluctance to spend any money on safety equipment inside vehicles. Wow. This led to the US DOT in 1966 and what later became known as NHTSA in the early 70s to establish highway safety offices. So what is now the OTS was formed in 1967 as the California Traffic Safety Program, and it's to provide funding through this new highway safety program. So in 1966, there were nearly 51,000 people killed in traffic crashes. I mean, that was 26 people out of every 100,000 Americans. I mean, these are astounding numbers considering the death rate now is nearly a third of what it was in 1966. So there was a lot of public pressure to address road safety. And this is exactly what happened with Ralph Nader's book. Again, every state and territory has this type of office that develops programs and funds behavioral safety to address our biggest challenges. And one of them we're going to talk about, and that's impaired driving.
Right. Wow. That is an interesting history. What are all the ways, you mentioned some, but what are all the ways OTS works to keep people safe on the roads and highways?
Sure. So we, in my unit, develop and manage year-round education and outreach programs. It's really about changing behaviors that make a road safer. We provide guidance, resources, tools, We also work with grantees like the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office and other safety partners to support this public awareness and engagement on a variety of issues. So overall, we work with about 300 agencies and nonprofits that have an agency as a host to fund these programs. We also develop new countermeasures and strategies to address different issues and also look at emerging trends in traffic safety. So we fund the work of others. That's the cusp of what we do, from enforcement to youth education programs to funding Gregory's team and the DUI and DUID prosecutors, emergency equipment, making sure children are in proper safety seats, anything traffic safety related that is educating or enforcing traffic laws more than likely came from funding through our office. So we are a small department, but we oversee a lot of important work. So we're not Caltrans or within the Highway Patrol. We are our own agency that specifically funds these programs.
Wow. And that's a big job for the entire state of California. Well, you mentioned grants in our office. I issue the press releases on all the grants that we've received from OTS through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So I just crunched some numbers just to give the audience an idea of how much you've helped our office over the years. OTS has awarded our office nearly $8.75 million in grants since 2010. These grants have funded prosecution of DUI cases, but also training for law enforcement officers on DUI and DUID investigations, prevention programs, really strong on prevention programs, but also our crime lab. So our office is one of few DA's offices that manage the crime lab here for the county. And OTS has funded specialized equipment to test for certain drugs, new breath alcohol testing devices, and also to fund a criminalist to staff DUI checkpoints, which I think is an important effort that's made to prevent people from driving under the influence. That's just an overview of what you've done for our office. Do you guys do a lot of those kinds of funding through DA's offices? I mean, is that a pretty typical partnership?
We have a variety of DA offices that we work with. San Diego comes to mind when it comes to crime lab, San Diego County. A lot of it is to just staff prosecutors to prosecute these cases. It's about holding people accountable. This is a dangerous behavior. So having the resources to build a case, a strong case against someone that is suspected of driving under the influence is really important to deter the behavior and reduce the amount of impaired driving that we're seeing on our roads. It's supposed to be a huge consequence, and prosecutors are a key step through all steps of the criminal process to make that happen.
Gregory, I'm going to bring you in at this point since you're facilitating the current OTS grant. What's your experience working on this grant program, whether it's prevention or the prosecution side?
Well, I've had a great experience facilitating the OTS grant. We have a lot of objectives and goals that we have through the fiscal year with OTS. Several of those goals are really key in facilitating the grant and really successfully prosecuting DUIs and preventing future DUIs from occurring. So one of the first goals of the grant is to train law enforcement officers to do better investigations and to do better report writing. And that's really critical for us as a district attorney's office, because better investigations help us charge more cases, prosecute more cases, and as Tim mentioned, ultimately hold DUI offenders accountable. That's key because once convicted DUI offenders, they have to take drug or alcohol classes. Those can range anywhere from 3 months all the way up to 18-month classes. And those alcohol programs help defendants with any alcohol problems they may have, and also help them make better decisions in the future, because while it's not illegal to drink, it certainly is to drink and drive. And so it helps cut down on future DUIs. My grant also has some requirements related to youth outreach. And I, as a prosecutor, go to high schools and help educate students about the dangers of drugs, about the dangers of alcohol, and about really the dangers of driving while under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And in part, the impact that crime has in our community, particularly any impact that occurs when somebody's injured or killed by a DUI driver. We partner with Arrive Alive to do those programs, and the feedback we've received has been universally positive from the students. And then lastly, as my position as the grant prosecutor, one of my main focuses under the grant, and particularly this last fiscal year, has been on training our attorneys to be excellent in DUI and drug DUI trials. I spend a lot of time every day working with our new attorneys, reading through the cases that they prosecute, and then helping teach them the science of DUIs, how to put a DUI trial on, how to spot issues in cases, how to argue all the necessary elements in the case. I've watched over 40 jury trials this last year. Some of them I watched parts of the trials, and some of them I've watched every moment from the second the jury walks in all the way through sentencing. And after each trial, I give feedback to our attorneys to help improve them, help improve the knowledge that they have of DUI and DUID prosecution, and improve their overall trial skills. And in the end, all that time and effort is put in to further help hold defendants accountable and responsible for committing DUI and drug DUIs, and really help keep the community safe, and hope in reducing a total amount of DUIs and drug DUIs that happen in our community, by making sure people know that if you commit these crimes, you will be held accountable.
What other types of grants does OTS fund, and for what types of other organizations?
Right. So we work with a lot of different organizations: law enforcement, public health departments, public works, parks and rec, nonprofits, advocacy groups, the public and private sector. They all ultimately share the same goal as us, to reach 0 deaths and serious injuries. So it really does take a village, and working collaboratively with a variety of agencies, departments, and organizations. On the law enforcement side, a lot of it is that classroom education, community outreach, as well as enforcement operations. Particularly after the recession, a lot of traffic units were cut. It's not the highest priority with traffic. There's other serious crimes that become priority. So allowing them to have the money to do these operations that they may not be able to do to address traffic safety is really important. And almost 200, I think, law enforcement agencies that we work with. So this is same with DA's offices, an important funding mechanism, and same thing with public health departments. We are funding their, for the most part, 100% their child passenger safety program. So this is your recertifying child passenger safety technicians. This is having car seat checkup events that are open to the public, so parents can come by, make sure that they have the right seat, it's installed properly. More than half of parents, and it's not because you're a bad parent. I've had experience with my nieces putting in car seats. It's a process. So
Yes.
it can be very challenging. And the car and the make, and some cars where they have the harness, you're like, who designed this? The harness is not going to reach. So it's not that you're a bad parent. It's just making sure your kid's safe. And that's what those checkups are for. But for most public health departments, if we don't provide this funding, that program isn't there. So 100 million doesn't seem like a lot for a state agency, but it goes to a lot of different organizations.
For organizations or folks listening, what is the process to apply for a grant?
Yes, so you do have to be a political subdivision, basically any local, county, or state agency. If you're a nonprofit, you do need to be a subrecipient and have a host that quote unquote sponsors the grant. The grant is off a federal year, so it runs October to September. And the process typically is we will solicit applications in December, have workshops that talk about what funding is eligible, what kind of programs are we able to fund. And then in January, people submit applications for the following year. So we've already gone through that process where some people are starting to get tentative awards coming right now. So for October, but the next cycle would be you apply in January, and next October in 24 is when it would start.
Let's focus on DUI, DUID issues and challenges. This is both for you, Tim and Gregory. First for you, Tim, how does OTS identify emerging new issues and challenges when it comes to driving impaired?
A lot of research, a lot of data-driven stuff, connecting issues with impairment and what we're seeing on our roads. Impaired driving still remains one of the most prolific traffic safety issues, continues to result in lives lost every day, and it's gotten worse since the pandemic. When it comes to DUID, that one is always challenging, and Gregory can probably attest to this because a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of what types of medications or over-the-counter drugs could affect their driving ability, or for those that consume cannabis. It's not like alcohol where you have a per se level. It's like you weigh this much, you have these many drinks over this period of time. This is probably where you are at, and you should not be driving. Everyone gets the insert when they get their license renewal from the DMV that shows the chart of how many drinks and what your BAC level is. It doesn't work like that with drugs. It's a little bit
Right.
trickier. So there's this perception that it's not as big of an issue as alcohol, and I think for that's where messaging is really important, to raise awareness that driving under the influence of anything is illegal. But we are data driven. We do look at the data, and we do rely heavily on our local grantees to provide that information so we can really map out where the problems are. CHP aggregates all the data from the allied agencies. And then we kind of evaluate that data. That's where we develop these crash rankings. A lot of grantees will use this basically based on the size of your city, where you rank in terms of your problems compared to other similarly sized cities.
Gregory, what about what you're seeing or hearing in terms
Well,
of
Tim stole
trends?
what I was going to say, to be honest with you. He's spot on. I have seen some trends here in Sacramento County. One of the more recent and troubling trends is we're starting to see fentanyl involved in some of the drug DUIs, and that's starting to appear more and more in people's blood and at higher and higher levels. And so that is a concern we've had. Our biggest challenge these days, I would say, are drug DUIs, and exactly for the reason that Tim talked about, and particularly marijuana DUIs. In alcohol DUIs, there's that per se limit. So somebody's above 0.08 at the time that they drove, okay, we can get you for a DUI. But as Tim mentioned, there is no per se limit on drug DUIs. And that's particularly problematic with marijuana, because marijuana use in California is now largely legal. So with marijuana being legal and without a per se limit on the Delta 9 THC in a person's body, jurors these days often seem very hesitant to convict on particularly marijuana DUIs. And so that's been one of our biggest challenges.
Tim, once OTS has the data and sees trends or new challenges, how does that then parlay into objectives and goals when it comes to determining what is going to be funded or whatever your priorities are?
We do have established countermeasure strategies. So the federal government has safety priority program areas, and a lot of them have been outlined, whether it's distracted driving, impaired driving, speeding. There's different countermeasure strategies that are rated on effectiveness. And what we'll do is we'll establish a couple countermeasure strategies, add it to objectives depending on the type of program it is, but really look and map out. And that's where the outreach is really important, right? Like, hey, if it's happening in the Central Valley, maybe we need to, let's overlay our grants there and see, are there any gaps? Are there any organizations that could use this funding to address this issue? Or if it's in Sacramento County, maybe there's an agency that isn't funded but is doing good work in that space. We're trying to get more and more applications, because it's a good and bad thing. The good thing is we have historic influx of funding. This upcoming fiscal year is the most money we have ever awarded. It'll be
Wow.
well over $100 million, 430 plus grants, the most we've ever had, because the feds have really prioritized. I mean, we're experiencing a crisis on our roads. I talked about nearly 51,000 people in 1966. Well, it was nearly 43,000 people in 2021. So we're headed in the wrong direction. So there's huge priority on addressing this issue. So we have the money, but we also have to have reform meet our function. We really need to expand that outreach, and that's where the data analysis is really important, so we can highlight any gaps and help support agencies that maybe have never had an OTS grant, or have had it in the past and don't have it now. And that's what we do with that information, to really hit where the data is showing us there's problems.
I'm going to go back for a second to the emergency issues and challenges, because I just thought about something. What about these self-driving cars and AI and all those things that could be hitting the roads more and more? I've heard of a lot of issues with those. Is OTS monitoring that? I know that's it's not a person behind the wheel, but it could be a road hazard.
Yeah, it's something that we're certainly are So the Office of Traffic Safety is under the umbrella of the California State Transportation Agency. So that includes the other agencies a lot of people have heard of because they're very customer based: Department of Motor Vehicles,
Mm.
the Highway Patrol, High Speed Rail, and they are working on a strategic framework to address these very issues. Like, how do we raise awareness? How do we make people be more informed as this new technology is coming out there, and not just with autonomous vehicles, but a lot of the driver assistance systems. I mean, some of them, you have the adaptive cruise control, and it kind of is like driving itself. You set and it automatically lowers and brakes when you put on cruise control, blind spot detection, like all these technology features that are intended to make the vehicle safer and account for human mistakes. It's really about educating the public about that. So once we see more and more on the road, I think we'll really band together. It'll take a collaborative effort with a bunch of different agencies to just keep the public informed on how these different systems operate.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether that helps or hinders road safety.
And you can still get a DUI when you're driving, and we've seen them here. People have a Tesla and they have their Tesla, they claim it's in self-drive mode. You can still get a DUI doing that. So it's not a get out of jail free card if you are driving in self-driving mode.
No,
Right.
you have to be ready to operate just in case, and can't do that if you're impaired. And same thing for sleeping. There's been plenty of videos I've seen of people taking naps. It looks like, and not touching the wheel, and they're on the freeway.
Tim, I'm going to turn the floor back over to you and just talk about what OTS is currently doing in terms of campaigns, public awareness.
Yes, so we will be starting up a new bicycle and pedestrian safety education campaign next month. Our slogan is "Share the road, share the responsibility." And this is really focused on the safety of people outside of vehicles, because people walking, biking, rolling, so it could be people with mobility assistance devices, people that walk with canes. They're not going to have the same protections as drivers and passengers. They don't have seatbelts, they don't have airbags. We really want to show the context to the benefits of slowing down for other road users that are not in the car, sharing the road. And we say share, but really the outsized role is drivers, because they're the ones driving 2-ton vehicles. And in many cases, the cars are heavier and heavier now. Really about keeping everyone safe. In May, we started a call to action campaign called the Go Safely Movement. And this is really a way to get the public behind traffic safety. We are encouraging people to take a survey on their perceived traffic safety issues and what actions they believe are needed to improve road safety. That started in mid-May. We've gotten more than 2,000 responses. And no surprise, the top problems that people are listing are speeding, impaired driving, and texting, distracted driving. So it's more than a campaign, but this Go Safely movement is to establish a strong road safety culture that doesn't accept what we're seeing on our roads, the people getting seriously injured or killed. Want people to be aware that we do have this crisis. The numbers are trending in the wrong direction. Since 2010, they've just skyrocketed, particularly with pedestrians that have been struck and killed by vehicles. And be more engaged in traffic safety. Make it like matter, right? A part of your everyday life. So gosafelyca.org is where you can fill out the survey. And we're also asking people to sign up as traffic safety champions. This is a really cool, exciting program that we want to connect people that are interested with resources and bolstering local safety efforts where they can contribute. So whatever that level is, it could be volunteering at an event that you guys put on at a school. It could be helping organize you guys coming to a classroom to present to students, or just posting stuff on social media, encouraging the community to be safe on the road, however people want to help.
You have resources on your website, so I'm sure people can go there if they're looking for tools or resources to use. Can you talk about you have a lot on your website. Actually, I spent quite a bit of time on there.
We're going through like a little audit and just really trying to organize the different materials that we have, but we want to be the safety expert. We are the safety expert when it comes to traffic safety. So gosafelyca.org, one-stop shop, all kinds of resources. We also support our grantees and our partners. We welcome any suggestions for new materials. If you guys need a material developed, we are here to assist you. We're here for the grantees as well. There's a media toolkit section. That's where you'll find a lot of social graphics, videos, stuff from our campaigns, radio scripts, tip cards, fact sheets, all kinds of informational materials. But I do want to point out, since we're talking about impaired driving, a lot of good information comes from the DUI MIS report that's produced by the DMV. This has a lot of information on like conviction rates, the rates of people reoffending for DUI arrests. Our chief traffic records officer, Slajna, she used to head the research and DMV's research branch. It's really also a valuable tool that we look at every year in the report, and also helping us inform where we need to do more programming.
Is that public information that the DMV? Oh, wow. Well, it makes sense that they would have that since they control the licensing and
Yes, so they get it
things
from the
like that.
licensing, and
Mhm.
I mean, conviction rates are tricky, right? Gregory, you can attest to this. The wheels of justice move a little slower, so you have to wait for that people to go through the criminal process, but it's really informative.
Okay, well, I'm going to close out. I think we talked about a lot here for both you, Tim, and Gregory. Is there anything we haven't covered or any key takeaways that you want our listeners to learn from today? Tim, I'll start with you.
We really need the public's help. We are really hoping that we can establish this safety culture. I think people should want and expect safer roads and neighborhoods. People want to be safe. People should be able to walk out the door or get in the car and come back home. And like flying on an airplane, it's just expected that you land safely. But it's going to take a lot of different moving parts to get there and solve the problem. But it starts with the public. They know their communities best. They live, work, and play there. And if they could just treat everyone like it's their closest friends or family out there, I think we'd have a lot more safer drivers out there.
And Gregory.
We're working really hard at the Sacramento District Attorney's Office to ensure your safety on the roads and to hold those who commit crimes on the roads accountable. Your tax dollars are going to good use through the Office of Traffic Safety, and we're using those funds very effectively, efficiently, and competently here at the DA's office.
Well, for more information on what we discussed on this podcast, you can either visit the OTS website at ots.ca.gov. We'll also have some information on our podcast notes page. And to find out the latest from OTS, you can follow them on social media, on Facebook at California OTS, and Instagram and Twitter at OTS_CA. Thank you so much, Tim and Gregory, for being on today. I'm actually very happy to have OTS on just because they've been such a good partner for so many years. That is not the face of every grant program and all the good things that are being done through your agency. So we really appreciate it. We hope to continue the partnership we've had with your agency for so long. Thank you both very, very much.
Thanks for having me. Keep up the
Thank
great
you.
work.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Justice Journal podcast. You can find all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, and I hope you share them with your family, friends, and colleagues.